I'm Lew Frees. I've spent a lifetime working with organizations like yours. I help companies understand the difference between what's good enough and what's truly inspired. So how do you recognize an inspired organization? A lot of organizations do things well, but still can't break out of the pack. But an inspired organization is different. You feel it as soon as you walk in the front door. There's a positive energy that flows throughout the entire organization, and I call that vitality. Some have it, others just think they do. Those organizations try to simply copy what others are doing, and they get better, but they can't get past good enough. They don't understand the margin of difference. The margin of difference is the point at which a shift occurs between what's good enough and what is truly inspired. This point is a very narrow margin of difference, but it can create a shift in what you do and what you make that is truly seismic. A very narrow margin can create a very big difference. Here are some examples we can all relate to. A horse race in which a horse wins by a nose. A 100-meter dash won by a sprinter who stretches at the finish line. A diving catch in the last inch of web that makes the difference between an out and a two-run double. That's the margin of difference. It operates in the small space between the mundane and the achievement of major outcomes. From responding to emails to getting out reports. From the simple acts of getting the job done to corporate strategy. It's the desire to reach for more, and it's natural to all of us. When you watch a baby who's learning to walk, it's a reminder that pushing the margin is part of our natural inclination from the get-go. It's built into our DNA. Have you ever seen a baby who learned to take 2 steps, then they decided that's good enough? Of course not. We put this into practice in many parts of our daily lives. The way we play, the way we exercise, even in our relationships. We may not be consciously aware of it, but pushing the margin comes naturally. As we grow up, we easily forget that pushing the margin of difference is the natural way to operate. Operating at the margin of difference is the source of great inventions and breakthroughs of all kinds. But it also leads to the simplest improvements to a process. Plans, decisions, concepts, strategies, balance sheets, even the smallest improvements to a process begin as products of the mind. They are the most important products in your organization. These are examples of items that were simply ideas long before they were developed into tangible products and services. They're proof that operating at the margin of difference during the thinking process determines whether your results will be inspired or just good enough. No matter what you're doing in your organization, you and the people you work with are operating somewhere on a scale from less than ordinary to inspired. The margin of difference in intellectual products is achieved at 8.5 on a 10-point scale. So, what is it that gets you there? It's certainly not basic intelligence. It's not even raw talent. Don't get me wrong, they help. But something else gets you past being just good enough. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So where do you start? You start with a concept called pull. Pull is the natural attraction produced by anything that is significant or important to us. It's like a magnet. The more you care about something, the more it engages you. You want it and reach for it. But it doesn't just affect you. Pull also attracts the circumstances, people, and events that help make it happen. An organization is a pull factory. Everyone is creating pull based on the things that are significant to them. In this way, pull self-organizes who will be drawn to each other. It impacts the quality of relationships. It also impacts what people talk about and the way they connect. So, what are the attributes of pull that create inspired performance? Inspired pull is clear and highly focused. It's powerful and compelling. It's inclusive and big picture. Your mission, strategy, guiding principles, and leadership all create pull. So does everything else you do. Every decision you make, every activity in which you engage. Creating pull goes directly to your bottom line. It affects your profit margin, your market share, and the quality of your products. Understanding pull is where you start if you want to achieve the margin of difference. Your ability to achieve the margin of difference depends on the quality of 5 critical factors. Your social networks, social capital, conversations, the engagement process, and your individual thinking process. In other words, the way you think and work. These factors determine the difference between good enough and inspired, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's start with social networks. Social networks are the web of connections between people. They're the lifeblood of your organization. When we need information, guess where we go? Research shows we go to other people. Databases, file systems, or manuals tend to be a second choice. Organizations that reach the margin of difference have inspired social networks. An optimal network is highly diverse, includes people who can push the boundaries of current thinking. These members are often people you wouldn't expect. They can be in the corporate office or pushing a broom. They can be a sales executive or even a customer who's complaining. Great social networks include anyone who has a stake in the outcome. Every person who operates at the margin of difference has an inspired social network. Pick a problem. What kind of information is staring you in the face? Chances are it's information that, if paid attention to, would shift the way you think about it. Social networks connect you to the information, and social capital creates the environment. Social capital is the bank account of goodwill and rapport between people. It carries forward. Build social capital with someone, and it's there the next time you meet. You know what it's like when you're on the same wavelength with someone? You can almost finish each other's sentences. The quality of exchange afforded by high social capital is the margin of difference between good enough and inspired. In an organization, you build social capital by creating trust. You trust the people that are sincere, reliable, and competent. You also build social capital by conveying respect and building rapport. The next factor is conversations. Conversations are the heart of an organization. They pump the information through which we create both intellectual products and human relationships. You may get to good enough in an atmosphere in which people are selling, telling, and in other ways pushing ideas at each other, but you won't get to inspired. In order to be truly inspired, you need to have the kind of conversations in which people quickly understand one another's meaning and intent. The kind of conversations where interchange builds ideas and creates new understanding. So I've touched on social networks, social capital, and conversations, which brings me to the fourth key factor in the margin of difference, the engagement process. The engagement process includes all of the activities and venues through which we interact. They can either enhance the fluid interchange of ideas and conversations that results in discovery and inspiration, or they can frustrate it. They can propel the advancement of ideas, creating flow, or they can undermine continuity. They can bring forth the best thinking of each person, or waste everyone's time. 8.5 engagement processes make it possible to be in the zone. But none of these will get you to 8.5 unless you're anchored by a strong base of individual thought. Individual thinking is the foundation on which each of the other four factors is built. The way people think individually and together is the most critical factor in achieving the margin of difference. Inspired individual thinkers know that the way they think and what they think about matters. It has everything to do with the outcomes they achieve, the quality of their relationships, and the flow of their processes. People who reach the margin of difference are always improving their ability to pay attention to what they're trying to achieve rather than to their fears. They always push the boundaries of their own thinking and understanding. They don't get distracted by the static and noise. They enjoy not only the outcome, but also take great satisfaction in the journey. They're always trying to improve that process, moving downstream instead of rowing against the current. Rowing with the current opens up endless possibilities. When you move from what's good enough to truly inspired, you begin to enjoy the journey, and you'll be amazed by the results. I want to thank you for joining me. In the rest of this series, I'll show you how to master the 5 factors of the margin of difference and move your organization from good enough to truly inspired.